second by trustee McKagan and trustee Bachhorst. And I see we have a change probably needed.
Yes.
Well, just your name and your address.
Kristen Idle, 2923 North Marietta, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm one of the owners of Toro Taco. The doing business as has changed. I don't know if that needs to be updated. I'm assuming it's probably on our license.
Is it on the application? How is it on the application?
What's the
By our
name?
legal name, our Toro Taco.
And that is what's changing?
No, they're doing business as.
The publication though is for Taco Super.
So what is the entity that you're asking it to be issued to?
Toro Taco.
Okay. And that's actually what is actually reflected on the application?
Correct, so it's Toro Taco doing business as Taco Super.
Okay.
The doing business as has changed.
We can just note it in the motion that, where we awarded to and then reference the full name.
Okay.
Doesn't it already say that though, or the public notice to say awarded to Toro Taco, does it have that word and then
Yes, it does.
business as?
Yes,
Or
it
you're
does.
just-
It does.
I don't think there's not a notice issue. It's just a technicality in terms of the entity, the official name, the corporate name.
Has not changed.
Okay, would you like to take your motion withdraw, maybe restate? Do we probably need to do that?
Procedurally, do I have to?
We can amend it.
We can amend it.
You can amend with unanimous consent.
I would like to amend it as per discussion.
What are you doing business as? What's the?
Nothing.
Yes, it happened. Hiya Taco. H-I-Y-A. Hiya.
That's different. So it's not just removing the doing business as toward something else, it's actually a new name.
Just the doing business
Doing
as.
business is more Taco Super.
Right.
This name, that would be the motion.
It's still Toro Taco. Inc.
Discussion has to change that.
You're good?
What page is the, let's just double check this, what page is the, in the packet is the application?
It is 147.
147 is the memo. 149 is the application. The trade name is the listing.
Which we did have a trade name at that time.
It just says Toro Taco, nothing else. Toro Taco.
How about I amend the motion to say I move to approve the license to Toro Taco and leave out the doing business as.
That would be great, except, yes, I don't know if it's noticed that way, so we only consider.
I only see it on the application, on page 149.
Yeah, they only have the Toro Taco listed
Yeah,
in
it
the
just says
application.
name, individual, partnership, last name, first name, initial, corporation, limited liability company, it just says Toro Taco.
And I don't see a doing
So I don't-
business as.
Yeah, I don't see it,
The agenda item though, the notice says, consider application for Class B license for Toro Taco Inc., DBA Taco Super.
I don't think that there is a problem there with notice, because they're just not doing business as, and it does appear to be correct on the application.
Okay,
So, yeah, I don't.
so trustee McKee.
I would just amend my motion to remove the doing business as Taco Super. And leave the rest of it.
Everyone else is okay with that change? Okay, so it's unanimous consent. Any further discussion? We have a motion by trustee McKay, a second by trustee Bachhorst. Any further discussion? Did you have anything you wanted to? No? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you
opposed?
very much.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. January, February, as soon as possible.
Next item on our agenda is 9B, consider process for engaging
Thank you.
for design sewer improvements. Leanne.
Hello again. You'll recall, I believe it was most recently at one of our long-range planning meetings, we had some preliminary conversations about engineering assistance throughout the MMSD design process. Then we had some further conversations about the benefits to the village of utilizing a single engineering firm to design all of the anticipated combined, the Southeast Area combined sewer projects. So this is the formal ask of those two previous informal conversations. You know, I'm sure, that the village's purchasing policy addresses professional service contracts. And I believe the policy indicates that anything with an anticipated contract value of greater than $10,000 does require that the service be, that a request for proposals process be utilized to select that professional service firm contractor. Based on the number of hours that staff and Strand, our village engineer, has already put in with MMSD on the preliminary design phases of the hydro surface collector, which is MMSD's project, and Strand's working knowledge of our system, both from their previous work in other areas of the village and more recent work. Staff is asking that you consider suspending, or at least discuss suspending that RFP requirement in the purchasing policy, and consider negotiating a contract with Strand for design services for the Southeast Area combined sewer improvements.
Does anyone have any questions? I will wait to the floor. Trustee Menta?
How would you ensure that we are, getting an appropriate amount, scope of work, and a number of hours? I mean, if we're not bidding it competitively, how are we going to ensure that we're getting the right number?
I think that we can, well, I would take a two-pronged approach to that. We have some, there are some standards for engineering contract values. Typically, an engineering contract cost or value will range from 6 to 10% of the anticipated construction value, which doesn't sound, but that's a pretty good range. But I mean, that sort of gives us a target, right? I think we would look at developing a scope of services for what we anticipate the project to be. At this point, my thought would be to ask some of the engineers that we work closely with at MMSD at the district to just sort of review that scope and make sure that we were on target with that and that we weren't missing anything. But I would mirror very closely the scopes that we have written for the previous sewer improvement projects that we have done in the village since 2012. Yes, it's a different location, it's a different outcome, but in essence, the scope of work would be the same, and all of the types of things that we would want to make sure that were looked at, were completed, were achieved. Those elements would be very similar.
So we have a history of
We have
similar
more
projects.
What's the budget for Strand right now? Through the RFP process, what was our estimated hours for Strand? Because you want to add on without an RFP, but
No, actually, what I would do is ask them to give us an entirely separate.
what is it now? I'll tell you what I'm asking after Trustee Warren has it.
About 25.
Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
I'll tell you. Trustee Warren.
Oh, so so I like the idea of cost savings already kind of 200 hours in and be able to take advantage of their experience. Just my question is this: what if we do this and we suspend the policy for this engagement and we can't come to an agreement? It's not within 6 to 10%, or they're not. The scope isn't right. But we have time then to go out and RFP it. If this just for some reason it doesn't work.
We would. The time-sensitive issue is that during that process, we would still require engineering support and services, and that would be at Strand because they are a village engineer. So, I mean, the exposure there, if you want to call it that, would simply be that we are paying them for support and hours, which we will then have to transfer to a new engineer at additional costs and additional hours. But, yeah.
So, I'm gonna vote no, but here's why. It appears that there's an estimation that typical engineering fees sewer only for combined projects can be estimated at approximately 1.2 million. Is that what the number says? The cost estimate that Strand put together for typical engineering fees sewer only for combined projects can be estimated approximately 1.2 million.
Strand did not put that number
Or
together.
SEA, somebody put it together.
Staff.
Okay, so why I'm asking is, we did an RFP for village engineering services, right? It was very specific to just, it was not a specific RFP for engineering of a sewer system in complete, and there, I agree that we know Strand, and it might make sense to use the same engineer, but it is a completely, in my opinion, different scope of services than what we approve. And the reason I asked about the number of hours is, I'm assuming that these hours are way more than we would have approved for just village engineer, village engineering was, in my mind at the time, I don't know what the RFP says, I'd like to see what that scope of service is. Is it included in the packet, or was it linked or something? Just because, so to know what we did approve for engineering services and what we are gonna tack on or without another RFP.
It did not really contemplate specific projects.
Yep.
Let me rephrase. It did not specifically contemplate work in the southeast area.
Correct.
The general engineering contract did not.
Correct, and so to me, general engineering is different than an entire sewer system. There may be one of the other engineering firms may have ranked higher. I can't say whether they did or not, but they may have based on the different scope of services, which is in my opinion, is gonna have a lot more hours than what typical village engineering services.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Perhaps
$1.6
tenfold.
million. Yeah, there's no way I could approve, not RFP, that many hours and that much money without an RFP. I just can't tack that much on. I mean, when we went through the purchasing policy development, it was more of, well, if there's another $5,000 of worth of work and we already have 10,000, then we could potentially waive that, but 1.2 million is way too much.
Believe me, I absolutely understand that.
Okay, thank you.
The only reason that I'm standing here, because if I were you, I would look at that number and go,
1.2 million.
you're really asking a lot. And I fully acknowledge and understand that. The reason that I'm standing here is, other than Clark Dietz, who's indicated they're not,
Not formally, but yes,
Yeah.
to you.
there is no other engineering firm in this area that understands our system
And then they
at the
strand might
level
go up
that
to the
Strand
top.
does.
Yep, but I still, it's,
So, they understand our system, they understand the workings of our system, they have a relationship with MMSD, they have a relationship with us. I absolutely understand the RFP requirement, and if that's your direction, we will do that to the best of our abilities. But
I'm sure.
But the reality of it is that I don't like to do those exercises with even a hint of disingenuousness. And knowing what the background that Strand has and what they have done, that's a big hurdle for any other firm to demonstrate that they would have more knowledge or be more qualified.
Can I just ask a simple question? But MMSD works with other engineers besides just Strand and
Yes,
Clark.
they do.
Yes. So it is possible that they might not have as much knowledge because they haven't worked for us, but it is possible for them to understand the sewer system. And
Absolutely, but
then they'll just rank
the intricacies of our system and how the modeling works together and how we have identified future projects, how that works in tandem with MMSD's current project, there isn't anybody else that understands that the way Strand does. They will have to design the system, but we will end up paying for that knowledge twice.
And I think that's what we said about Clark Dietz, but unfortunately they had a conflict of interest. But when we did, no one else had that knowledge. So I appreciate that, I understand that. Trustee Menta.
Yeah, I know we've had several studies done over the past, 10, 12 years. So have all those studies have been done either by Clark Dietz or Strand, or there hasn't been any other company that's done a consulting study for
Baxter Woodman has.
I know, and I appreciate that, President, I was like, I hadn't read it that closely, so, I mean, you're really asking the sole source $1.2 million in cut yet.
Correct.
That's a great number.
I acknowledge and understand.
Yep, and it's also one of the reasons why I think Director Bushlick was bringing it to everybody's attention tonight, because we know that in whatever direction we proceed, we need to proceed in earnest. Just because we conceptually looked at some lines on paper and have said as a group, yeah, this is what we want to proceed with. But now we actually need to take it to some conceptual engineering to see what that does and how it works.
But that's not the request for us as a sole source contract.
Correct. I was just emphasizing her desire to be here tonight before you to start this discussion, so that if anything, the reverse conversation was also not true, which is a board asking, well, why don't we just consider doing this with Strand? If
But you have to, you have to come to the board to do that.
only emphasizing to the care that she's trying to take in having this discussion and getting in the right direction with you as a group, so we all have a good level of understanding.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Trustee Maher.
Yeah, so if we say go to RFP, Strand's gonna continue to work under their, and you're gonna need more money probably to do that, so you'll continue with the work, and as you're indicating, they have the expertise, so that the different engineering firms going through a fairly extensive process. Did Strand, who did the original study in that southeast quadrant, the initial beginning?
Well, that should be a really easy question to answer, but in fact, Clark Dietz has created and developed and updated a model since 2010. So they've been doing a lot of the pre-engineering and modeling work. We did have Rupert Milkey do a review on the feasibility of separating. Then we also had Baxter Woodman, you recall, did the CSSA study recently where they evaluated the permitting feasibility and then talked about some other options. And right about the time we were ready to publish that study, Trustee, I keep looking at you because you were in the Public Works Chair at the time, if you recall. Right when we did that, MMSD's like, hey, guess what? We're going to build this really big pipe on Edgewood and we're going to help you out. So we kind of had to pull that study back and revise it a little bit and then publish it. So there have been a couple.
If we do go to RFP, could we, the scope would include things like projected number of years. I mean, I know this is your staff, but projected number of years this project would take for this, engineering hours per year for engineering services, costs per type of engineer. So it might be different than just general. It might be like sewer engineer, apprentice engineer. I don't know what they are, but you know what I mean. Those like a typical.
What I would do, because it would be, the request would be quite conceptual in the sense that it would say, this is all the information we have on the near surface collector, which is what MMSD is building. This is what we have conceptually developed for neighborhood extensions from that main sewer. This is the model that why we think this is all going to work the way it's going to work, and then how we've developed this in our cost estimates. And then it would have the specificity in the scope of services would talk about their involvement in meetings, what types of construction drawings we would need, what type of project management we would require, those sorts of things.
But it would
in
say,
no shape or form would I
back from them.
I would not indicate an expected level of hours.
Oh, no, we wouldn't. So I apologize. I had that wrong, and I knew you were going there. So like in the IT, what we want from them. So in your proposal back to us, here's what we have, our conceptual design. And then we get, the board would even if there's just one, we get how much they think, how many hours, just kind of how you did it here.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would ask them, how many hours do you think this would take, just like every other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I think it was just misunderstanding. And then how many hours per year, and cost per type of engineer, just like other engineering, but
Yeah,
for a specific project.
Similar to, I would say the last time we did a proposal like that would have been Wilson and/or Larkin, yet to be built project. It would be the same thing, but on bigger scale.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful. Trustee McKay.
I really appreciate this thoughtful discussion and seeing on both sides kind of the positives and negatives or potential scenarios. I guess I feel that in this case, I'm really glad that we have the procurement policy, and I think we've used it really well. I think in this case, it's a reasonable request to suspend the rules or suspend the policy, and I see going to RFP is wasteful on several levels, has been discussed. So that kind of outweighs the benefit of sticking with our policy. So I would make a motion that staff be directed to proceed with the development of the Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements Project, scope of services, and engineering design and construction of inspection services, professional services agreement with Strand Associates for future village board consideration.
Does it need to say, I would appreciate if we could add as a sole source contract? Because
As a sole source of contract, wherever it belongs. Yeah, I think I will state for the camera and the record that I think it's appropriate in this instance to sole source contract, even of this scope.
Any further comments? Do we have a second? Okay, any further comments? Trustee Mahoney.
I just have a question as, and do you, I guess because Strand's already our village engineer and they have been in this rodeo before, I mean, do you feel like they have such a leg up that there really is no there's no competition, or do you think it's conceivable that Shorewood or Cold Peaks could come in with a significantly better proposal, or, so I'm trying to get a sense from you if you feel, if we're going through a process and we're going to end up with Strand at the end anyhow, because they already have such an competitive advantage, or is there some?
I think it's difficult to deny that they have a competitive advantage because of the time that they've already put in on MMSD's project. Understanding, we've spent a lot of meetings and a lot of hours in rooms with MMSD engineers, making sure that they understand what our concept of our sewer improvements intend to perform, the benefits they intend to give, and making sure that they will tie correctly and appropriately with what the district is working on, currently designing. They've made changes in their design based on some of the things that we have already told them. So it's hard for me to deny that, yes, I believe Strand has an advantage over other firms because of the 200 or so hours they've already put in on the project.
Trustee Berger?
And you had mentioned this earlier, but that, I mean, would you feel disingenuous going out to RFP with that competitive advantage?
Honestly, I would a little. I think that there would be firms that would look at that and would see, that Strand is our village engineer, that Strand has already put in. They're going to look at this tape, they're going to look at the memo, they're going to see the hours that Strand has already put in. And they'll, there may be some that will propose, but I think, they're all going to look at it and know that they have an extra hurdle or two to get to the finish line at the same time that Strand would.
Trustee Mahoney.
Yeah, this is a fairly major contract, 1.2 million overall. This is probably the biggest project we're going to undertake in the village. We don't know what the situation with these other vendors could be. Somebody could be desperate to get work. I don't, we're making a lot of assumptions.
Right, we'll never
I mean,
know.
it's such a large contract. I'm a little bit lucky. Just assume nobody's going to be good, have a good pricing on their services.
Yes, trustee.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very similar to Sumar. I definitely see both sides of this conversation, but it is such a large contract, and I don't want to put you in a position where you're feeling that you're disingenuous to potential other firms, but I also, feel a duty to make sure that we're looking at every vendor that could provide the same service, even if one may have, a competitive advantage. What if somebody else has the ability to execute the contract the same way? And I mean, this is a big decision and a really hard decision.
Trustee McKay.
I guess I just want to say that one thing that the reason why I feel comfortable with the motion that I made is because even if the prices come in competitively differently, so the pricing is better on another engineer, they are going to have to use those hours to catch up. So there's an aspect of paying twice for this. So again, if that's what's most important to the board, then vote no. But I do think that that's a significant.
If I could just add one thing that touched on the memo, but we haven't talked about here. And I think this was a topic of conversation when we selected Strand as the new village engineer. In my time here, without question, they have produced the most accurate, technical, and complete plan sets of any engineer that I have ever worked with. And that typically translates into better built projects and cost savings. You may get an engineer who will give you a lower price, but you might not be comparing the same type of apples. But you don't know that. But so I'm just saying that is kind of the primary reason that I'm here making this incredible ask of you is because I have every confidence in their technical engineering ability, and I think the village will get an extremely high quality construction drawing product from them. So that's my piece on that.
I'd just like to say a couple of things. I want to read from the person policy, but more importantly, so the person policy says, in case you're not familiar, in certain cases, legitimate business needs may justify a sole source contracting when the products or services are one of a kind, proprietary, required under other agreements, are in response to emergency situations, or when other time restraints make a competitive procurement infeasible. Those are the only reasons that we should be sole sourcing a contract, and that's taken from very standard language around the state and the nation for sole sourcing while we were writing this policy. I do understand, I remember when we had the conversations about Clark D, sole sourcing, they had the most knowledge. That is why that criteria in the matrix when the RFPs come back is weighted high. If you have specific knowledge of the village of Shorewood, blah, 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 you have credible, the staff has always thought you had a good product, you get a lot of points for that. But we also are under no obligation, like other municipalities, to take the lowest bid. So that kind of, it's not, you don't have to worry about, there's nothing in our policy that says when it comes back for engineering services, we would have to take the lowest bid, even though it might not be having the most experience. So that negates that a little bit. 1.2 million, I can't remember a contract. Clark Dietz might have a different, I'm just going to give you the two we talk about all the time, Baxter Woodman and Clark Dietz. They may have a different section of their firm that they want to bid on 1.2 million in the contract. Or you may find someone in the MIC area who works for the city of Milwaukee, doing engineering services on their sewer system, and they may want to bid on ours. And they might be a minority. So there's two reasons we do bidding. It's not just for price, but it's also to give equal opportunity to everyone for 1.2 million in public funds. So I feel very strongly, in the end, we may come out with Strand. I'm assuming that they will rank high. If we get only one, at least we'll have a very clear scope of services in front of us that will understand what we're authorizing for 1.2 million. There are many reasons to do an RFP, if it was reversed and it was first $1.2 million contract and then we were tacking on 90,000, I feel much more comfortable, but it's not. So what we went out for RFP for with public funds was not what we're contracting for. So for that reason, I will vote no.
Just to clarify,
oh sure,
you will have a very clear scope of services either way you do it.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that I concur with trustee Maher, trustee Carpenter, some of the points that have been expressed, that this is, I see both sides of this one. You know, you really, it'd be really nice to realize those cost savings that we would get from those 200 hours that have already been put in, but on the flip side, this is a very large contract to award as a sole source contract. You know, going off of what President Rosick just said, and you know, thinking about policy, you know, would you say those 200 hours have risen to a level, to the point where it almost becomes a proprietary concern, where they've gotten so far ahead that there's no way no efficient way for another person bidding on this contract to catch up? And I realize you've asked derivations of that, but I kind of wonder.
I wouldn't be comfortable saying there's no efficient way for them to catch up. My concern would be that they get caught up in a time frame where they've reached that point well prior to the completion of MMSD's design process. So that is where our back is a little bit against the wall.
How long does an RFP take? I know we wanted to sole source something else, and I think was it 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or what's the timeline?
Well, I'm anticipating
9 days, I think was the last one, for engineers.
well, we have to draft it first. So that's going to take a couple weeks, because, and then once you issue it, I think you have to, 2-week minimum response time, I would say 3 probably is more reasonable.
It's such a large project.
Yeah, it's
So
huge.
page 170, there's a, and timeline is anticipated, so September and October, draft the RFP with technical assistance.
Well, you have to draft the scope in that time frame anyways, correct? I mean, that would be lost time no matter what, whether it's a scope or an art, a scope of the RFP. Strand's gonna draft it, we're gonna draft it, or, right?
So that's, correct, September, October, and then, November 4th, the Public Works Committee would review and recommend the RFP document. It would then go to the board on November 19th for the board to approve the RFP document. If you'll recall, the board asked that any new type of RFP would go to standing committee and the board. And then, so November 20th, the RFP would be issued. The RFP would be due in January 2020. Firms would be interviewed, and in February, we would be ideally selecting a firm and also approving the services agreement.
Excellent. And just one question, if we had a time crunch for any reason, I thought we did the engineering services really quick turnaround, but I could be wrong, I'll look back. But,
So this one, I would, I don't mean to interrupt. Oh, having written several times village engineering services, but this scope will be significantly different. We're gonna need technical assistance from
our engineering. So, yeah, we're gonna have to write that scope anyways, is that correct? It's not a sunk time frame, you're gonna have to write the scope of services regardless. But my question is, if we needed to, we've always talked about being able to go to committee and then board that same night if we had to.
So that would be, if you are looking to RFP, that would be one of my asks.
Right.
Just so we could pick up another one, the sooner we can kind of do that, the better. I'm not insinuating that we're gonna rush a process, but that would be helpful.
Trustee Mentor.
Yeah, I kind of agree that this is a toss-up in a lot of ways for me. But the downside of going to RFP is that it's some extra effort expended on our part and on the consultant's part to do the response. And I think we may very well end up with Strand at the end anyhow. So you could say on the one hand it was wasted effort. On the other hand, we would have a little more security that the number we're getting from Strand is a justified number. So we would get some benefit out of going to RFP even if we end up where we started. So that's my feeling about it. I'd like to call a question just so we can move on.
Okay, we'll take everyone's spoken at least once, correct? That wants to speak? Okay. So for call of the question, we take a roll call, or no, just right, okay. All those in favor of calling the question, is that correct? Do we need a second? No. Do we need a second?
Yeah.
You can always ask
I'll
for
second.
unanimous consent if there's no objection.
Okay, so we have a call the question, trustee Matt, second by trustee Maher. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And then if you could just read back the amendment, the motion.
Trustee McKay will second by trustee Buckles to direct staff to proceed with the development of the southeast area combined sewer improvements, SEA CSI project scope and services and engineering design and construction inspection services professional service agreement with Strand Associates as a sole source contract for the future board consideration.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion fails to, okay. So does anyone want to make a motion? Do we need to make a motion, or do you just go out for RFP? I don't know.
You can give direction.
Could they ask us for a sole source? And then down, right? Well, I think we motion that, motion B.
To proceed with RFP with consideration of reviewing, I'm sorry, Misty.
Yes, you can, yes, please do.
Yes, over in there. Move forward with an RFP with consideration for the Public Works Standing Committee and the village board to review and approve the RFP document in the same evening if needed.
Yes. Okay, so, motion by President Rowe, second by Trustee Carpenter. Any further discussion? Trustee Warren.
Can you read it one more time, sorry?
To direct staff to proceed with RFP with consideration for the Public Works Standing Committee and Village Board to approve the document the same evening as needed.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those.
One comment.
Yes, Rebecca.
Nothing to do with the motion, but I'm reflecting on the conversation for the last 10 minutes, and I want to applaud you because this is going to be a big endeavor for all of us. And so I really appreciate just being able to hear and talk about, Leanne, so that she can verbalize to you some of the things that we talk about as a staff and how we kind of go through this. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate how you kind of worked through it tonight. So,
Aw, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying so late. Okay, our next agenda item is new business 9C, consider policy number 37, holiday decorations. Yes.
I'm going to do a brief intro. I think we're going to have a few people present on this item. So I'm the staff liaison for the Human Relations Commission. I think this is one of the first policies since they were brought back to life last year through the ordinance changes. So for you to consider. So I have Diva Briscoe and Mackenzie Edmonds here.
Did this go to committee or did it just go to HRC?
It just went to HRC. It's a recommendation from the HRC. So they'll talk about some of the policy options that they considered and talk about why they are recommending what they are tonight. And then after they're done, I think we'll direct it to Attorney Baer, who reviewed the policy and had some suggested changes, which are from a content perspective very different, but I think it gets at the same thing, but from a slightly different comprehensive perspective. So I'll let him talk about that. And then after Attorney Baer is done, I think there's going to be potentially two options for you to consider as a board. One, do you want to take action on tonight based on what is presented to you, or do you want to consider moving the recommendation back to the HRC to review Attorney Baer's comments and possibly provide more public input before making a final decision?
Point of clarification, HRC, the attorney had not reviewed the proposed ordinance languages.
Until after they adopted it, yeah, because they.
And then, so they made a recommendation and then the attorney.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct, yeah, and the changes are in front of you at your stations, and both Diva and Mackenzie have seen what Nathan has presented. So I'll have them start, okay?
May we get a copy of that?
Yes, and also just to be clear, can you hand that copies, please?
I don't have
Oh,
I will make copies right now,
okay.
as they are talking.
And just so you know, it will be attached, any handout that comes during the meeting is attached in the minutes for that meeting on, as soon as they're published, which is within a day or two, whenever they're published, so just be clear that's something new. But yes, we'll get copies.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have representatives from the please state your name and address.
Lindsay Edmonds, 2805 East Menlo Boulevard.
Eva Briscoe, 4516 North Bartlett Avenue.
So first, we were here tonight to talk about how the policy that we voted on, Diva and I both serve in the policy subcommittee. So the policy that we voted on passed unanimously, both in the subcommittee and as the commission as a whole. But with that, I want to be really clear that that policy is not the policy that you're voting on this evening. So my hope would be is that it is passed back to the HRC so that when we have the opportunity to discuss the specific language.
Can I ask why? We've never done that where, I don't know how it was changed, I apologize to interrupt, but we've never had something pass in committee and then change before it got to board, have we? Is there an explanation?
Did the policy change from how it was submitted from the HRC until now? It has. So, maybe I'll just interject. The conversation I've been privy to, and Kelly, you can step in if I need any clarification, but the HRC has done a lot of great due diligence and provided the policy group coming up with a recommendation. They as a group unanimously came forward and provided the recommendation. After the recommendation came forward, our village attorney had an opportunity to review the language, and he had some technical revisions, as attorneys typically do, to be helpful, and to also kind of preserve the language so that it could be in the best usable format moving forward. Tonight, we wanted to, or at least the staff or the village attorney had suggested that we have an opportunity to work with the HRC to massage that language. Now that they've made a recommendation and he sees what the intent is of that group, so that we can then bring that back to the board in a format that we would find to be approvable.
Can I ask just a process question, and because this is really like clarity. Usually when we refer, in my years here, so please, there's trustees that have been on board much longer than me, but when you refer to a not just a board committee, but like an HRC or a CDA for recommendation, unless we ask for exact language, they come back and provide us with the substantial elements that they feel are important. And then the attorney drafts it, and then we vote on it and with input in person from them. So we still could act without it going back to the HRC. In process-wise, I don't remember ever doing that. I remember just I said, thank you, and I want your input in 1 second. But they could tell us what substantially is, what the HRC felt, and that could also be a method. But in the past, I'm sure there was trustee Boppers.
Everything that we're doing here is very different from how things have been in the past, so I kind of see this as a new opportunity for us to work with the committees. In the past, the board did not direct committees what to work on. It was more the other way around, where committees, Conservation Committee, for example, would come up with ideas and present them to the board, and then get direction from the board whether or not there was some ground there or some support. So I understand what you're saying, but there is no precedent for this. So if their committee wanted it back, I can kind of agree with that, considering they've been working on this for a long time. And I don't see any reason why we would not give them another opportunity for discussion.
Sure, we can decide on that. But the other option would be at least to get the input. Trustee McKay.
I'm not sure that we heard everything that you have to say, so I felt like it got cut short.
So the spirit of the language in here, I feel like does represent which the policy we put forward, but I think because the language is different, and because we didn't discuss the specifics of the language, I would feel more comfortable for, as a commission, us backing it, for us to have the opportunity to review this, discuss the nuances of some of the language, and then put forth the vote as a whole commission. Additionally, I did have a question for the village attorney on with the new language then in the policy, if that would cause any potential impact to the construction of a knee roof at all, and if we could be informed on that, then to bring back to the
What's the
commission
new
as well.
language you're referring to?
So,
The general language that Attorney Bear is proposing?
Oh.
So on this sheet.
Yes,
not
correct.
that packet.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if people know what an arrow is a little bit. people know what that is. It's a, well, we have a rabbi here, but it's probably gonna
Please address the floor
But
or
it's
the
a,
chair, not each other.
it's basically an actual physical wire within that area. People who are Jewish and who keep the Sabbath are able to do certain things within the confines of the Erev, such as carrying things that they are not otherwise, they're kept from doing by keeping the Sabbath. So it's, I don't know, that hadn't been brought up at the HRC.
No, address the chair or the floor, please, not the speakers. Question is, just for order here, how we'll go in order, is there any, if we'd like to get your input as HRC, if there's anything else you'd like to say to us, then if you have questions, maybe we can turn it over to the attorney. The attorney can then give his perspective, and then of course there's people, I think, in the audience that would like to speak after the board is done deliberating on the issue. Is that an okay practice for everyone? Okay, so is there anything further you'd like to let us know?
The last statement I really had is that we felt strongly that this was the policy of the board for us to be fair and consistent and inclusive as a community as a whole.
The one that's in the packet, correct?
Yeah, one that's been.
Okay, thank you so much just for that clarification. Okay, anybody have questions on that, Trustee Warren?
Well, understanding that there's been some revisions and HRC wants to look at it again to make sure it's in final form. That's what I'm understanding right now. And I'm open to that. My only question is this, and maybe this is more for Rebecca. You know, we're starting to approach the holiday season actually. How quickly, if we refer it back down, how quickly can we get it done and get it back up to the board in order to get this policy in place? I think we all want it in place prior to kind of us getting the strike of the holiday season.
Sure. The HRC meets next on September 11th, and so in discussing with the staff liaison, Tyler McCurk, before the meeting, what we would do is allocate some time from that to get some direction from the group and then bring it back to the board. Do you have anything else you'd like to weigh in on?
No, I think if it all goes according to plan, September 16th, we could have it back on the agenda.
Okay, and Trustee Carpenter?
I just have a question about that was not in the policy or in the documentation that I read, so I'm familiar with what it is now that I've heard the word incorrectly, but I'm just wondering where that all came in to this discussion.
Right, because this is not.
I can feel that.
Yeah.
So the village has in the past, I want to say in 2003, we did approve Arabs. I've learned a lot about them in the last couple of weeks, that they span multiple communities, and many times those in the North Shore will go through 8, the power company, just a number of different entities. And so the village has in the past approved being a part of some of them because they're connected over pieces of time. And I think twice, and in 2015 we were approached, and then I think just recently we were also approached by everybody to move forward with the approval process, as they are with all the other communities to establish those. And just for everyone's clarification, they're typically like very thin wire, almost, you can't.
Fishing.
It's fishing, right, yeah, and it has to be stronger than fishing line.
It's not a structure, is it?
No, it's just a line, it's a fishing line that spans from utility poles.
But it could be decoration.
Not, no, it's not decorative in any way, shape, or form. It's to keep right, a barrier within a particular area, and it spans a significant. The one I'm understanding that they're working on does span through at least 6 communities. So